Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel Dhyani classes. If you are watching my video for the first time, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So in today's video we will cover the final part of the chapter, The Rat Trap, written by Selma Lagerlof from class 12th CBSE. So let's get started. So in the third part of the chapter, we have seen finally the rat trap seller ready to go along with the daughter of Iron Master. And while traveling, he realized that he had done wrong thing with the old crafter and cursing himself that why I had stolen the old man's money. And thinking all this, he was feeling afraid because he had stolen 30 kroner from the crafter's house. So he was feeling that he was caught in a rat trap and something bad is going to happen with him. And now he understood that he caught in a rat trap and will never get out of it because he had stolen money, and now stolen money is very problematic for him to hide because he was going to Iron Master's house with 30 kroner. And finally he reached the Iron Master's house, and the Iron Master became very happy to see his old regimental friend. And now both the father and the daughter planning to give him respectful job instead of selling that trap all around, so that he can live his life peacefully. So let's understand the last part of the chapter now. It is queer that things have gone downhill with him as badly as that, said the daughter. So here the author is saying that it is queer that things have gone downhill with him. That means his daughter said it is very strange to see the condition of the paddler, and understood that nobody can't believe that the man who worked for the regiment can have such a bad condition and leading his miserable life. So she was feeling very sorry for the paddler that he was going through such a bad time and tough time. So downhill means a bad time or worse time. And says, last night I did not think there was anything about him to show that he had once been an educated man. So while discussing all these things, his daughter said to her father that yesterday when she saw him, that I don't think that this man had once been an educated man. So she had some doubt on the paddler's education, that he is not well educated man, because the way he was replying to her, and he was completely dressed like a beggar, and his body language was very strange, and he had a long thick beard and overgrown hair. So she said that he had a bunch of rat traps as well, and nothing about him showed that he was an educated man. And then Iron Master said, "You must have patience, my girl, my little girl," said the father. So later on the Iron Master told his daughter Edla that you must have patience. That means just wait and watch, my little girl, and once you come out you will see the real picture. So you must have patience. Further he says, as soon as he gets clean and dressed up, you will see something different. So here the author is saying that the Iron Master was telling his daughter that as soon as he gets clean and dressed up, that means as soon as he took a bath and come out from the washroom, you will see a different image. So it is very hard for both of them to recognize him, but this time he is saying that once this paddler is clean and dressed up properly, you can see the different image of this man. And says, last night he was naturally embarrassed. So the Iron Master said that yesterday he was feeling ashamed because of his bad condition, and where he was wearing rags, and even he didn't want to look at him properly. So in this way the Iron Master was trying to convince his daughter Edla, and says the tramp manners will fall away from him with the tramp clothes. So here he is talking about the rat trap seller, that the tramp manner will fall from him. That means once he took a bath and wear new clothes, he will look very different, and beggar mannerism will also go away, and he will look neat and clean man, and then we will be able to see his real picture. And this is what the Iron Master was waiting to see. Just as he said this, the door opened and the stranger entered. So when the Iron Master was discussing all this thing, the door opened and the stranger entered. That means he came out from the washroom, and says, yes, now he was truly clean and well dressed. So when he came out, the paddler was looking very clean and well dressed. That means he wore new clothes and threw rags there, and the valet had bathed him, cut his hair and shaved him. So the valet means personal assistant helped the paddler to take bath and cut his long hair and thick hair and shaved his ugly looking beard. And then the paddler was looking very smart, neat and clean. and says, moreover, he was dressed in a good looking suit of clothes which belonged to the iron master. So finally he was dressed in a good looking suit of clothes. That means he wore branded clothes after taking bath and with clean shave, and which belonged to the iron master. So clothes were belongs to the iron master, so he wore the suit of the iron master. Further it says he wore a white shirt and a starched collar and whole shoes. So he was wearing a white shirt and starched collar, that means synthetic collar, and he was also wearing shoes which belonged to the iron master, and says, but although his guest was now so well groomed, the iron master did not seem pleased. So as he was looking very smart and wearing new clothes, branded clothes, and he was looking neat and clean, but the iron master did not seem pleased. That means the iron master was not happy at all when he saw the paddler standing in front of him, and says he looked at him with puckered brow. So the iron master was staring him top to bottom with puckered brow. That means he shrunk his face because he had some doubt when he looked at the paddler, because this time he was looking very different, and says, and it was easy to understand that when he had seen the strange fellow in the uncertain reflection from the furnace, he might have made a mistake. So here he is saying that this time the iron master understood that he misjudged this stranger, and by mistakenly he considered him as his old regimental friend, because at that time there was an uncertain reflection from the furnace. He might have made a mistake. So he is saying that he made a mistake because of the light were dim as well as unsteady reflection from the furnace. So he was not able to he was not able to recognize him, and it is natural that anybody could make a mistake in identifying a person during night, especially when the lights are dim. Now he is saying, but that now when he stood there in broad daylight, it was impossible to mistake him for an old acquaintance. So here he says that now, that means this time there is no chance to make a mistake in identifying him, because the paddler was stood in there in the broad daylight. So it was the day when the paddler was standing in front of the iron master, and says it was impossible to mistake him for an old acquaintance. That means this time the iron master was sure that this paddler is not his old friend at all. So acquaintance means old friend, and says, what does this mean? He thundered. So suddenly he became very angry to see the paddler, and he thundered. That means he shouted out loud, and says the stranger made no attempt to dissimulate. So the paddler was standing there when the iron master shouted out loud on him, and he made no attempt to dissimulate. That means he did not make any kind of attempt or any kind of emotions. He did not show any kind of emotions on his face, and he did not make any act in front of the iron master, and says he saw at once that the splendor had come to an end. So the paddler understood that all the splendor, that means all the magnificent and richness with which he was being treated, was coming to an end. That means all the facilities or comfort provided by the iron master and his daughter was coming to an end. Further he says, it is not my fault, sir, he said. So finally the paddler broke his silence and told the iron master that it is not my fault, sir, because he understood that the iron master got angry, and you are the one who made a mistake and considered me as your old regimental friend, and says I never pretended to be anything but a poor trader. So he also said that I did not try to show off that I am somebody else, but the reality is that I am a poor trader. That means I am a poor Rattrap seller, and says, and I pleaded and begged to be allowed to stay in the forge. So he also told the iron master that I pleaded and begged. That means I requested many times that I would like to stay in the forts only for one night, and I am not coming to your home with you, and you forced me to come along with you, and says, but no harm has been done. So he also told, the Rattrap also told him that I didn't do anything wrong, such as stealing anything from the forts or from your house, and I didn't try to take anything away from you, and says, at worst I can put on my rags again and go away. So he also told the iron master that the worst thing I can do, that is I can take my old clothes and my old torn clothes and I can put it again and I will go away. And then the iron master replied, well said, the iron master, hesitating a little. It was not quite honest either. So he says that whatever you told me, it may be true, but you are not honest at all because you did not speak anything about you. Even I was making mistake while identifying you as my regimental friend. But you could have told me that you are not my friend and you are only a paddler and selling rat traps only. So the iron master was quite agitated while telling this to the paddler. You must admit that, and I should not be surprised if the sheriff would like to have something to say in the matter. So here he says that you must admit that. That means you must accept that you told a lie. And then he says, I should not be surprised if the sheriff would like to have something say in the matter. So the iron master threatened him that if the sheriff, that means the person who in charge of law and order in that area, he will decide what to do, because I am going to inform him all about you, and I will not be surprised that what he will do with you because you told me a lie. And says the tramp took a step forward and struck the table with his fist. So immediately the tramp, that means the paddler, Rattrap seller, the beggar, got very angry and took a step forward. That means he came forward and struck the table with his fist. So he hit very hard on the table because he became very aggressive and angry after hearing what the iron master told him, and says, now I am going to tell you, Mr. Iron Master, how things are, he said. So as you know that the peddler became very angry, and then he broke his silence and said to the iron master that now I am going to tell you, that means I will explain you how things are going with me and why I kept myself quiet and how I came here and seated and stated telling something to the iron master, and says this whole world is nothing but a big rat trap. So now he started explaining the thought came in his mind when he was on the way, and said the whole world is nothing but is a big rat trap itself, but nobody know it and people running behind the baits. Further he says all the good things that are offered to you are nothing but cheese rinds and bits of pork set out to drag a poor fellow into trouble. So here the peddler is explaining all the good things that you have given are nothing, such as the cheese rinds, cheese bits of pork. So what are they? They are the baits according to the peddler. And why they are used? Because they set out to drag a poor fellow into trouble, and these baits are nothing but things to attract poor people into rat trap. And says if the sheriff comes now and locks me up for this, then you. So here he is saying that then he started threatening the iron master through that. He said if the sheriff comes and threaten me and puts me behind the bar, then you are going to get caught in something. And then the peddler says, Mr. Iron Master must remember that a day may come when you yourself may want to get a big piece of pork, and then you will get caught in the trap. So he told, the trap seller told him that, see, if the sheriff comes and locks me up, then remember, Iron Master, one day you are also going to be attracted to some baits and you will also get caught in a trap. The Iron Master began to laugh. So on hearing the peddler's philosophy, the Iron Master started to laugh out loud because he was the only one who thinks that the whole world is big rat trap, and says, that was not so badly said, my good fellow. Perhaps we should let the sheriff alone on Christmas Eve, but now get out of here as fast as you can. So here the Iron Master told him in a joking manner that whatever you have explained about the whole world is good, my friend, but the important thing is that we should let the sheriff alone on Christmas Eve. That means the Iron Master started ignoring the peddler and waiting for his guest, and it was the sheriff on Christmas Eve, and said, but now get out of here as fast as you can. So finally the Iron Master told the peddler to leave his house as fast as he can, because we want to welcome our guest and want only the sheriff to come here. And says, but just as the man was opening the door, the daughter said, I think he ought to stay with us today. So here, after hearing the Iron Master, the peddler started walking to go away from his house, and when the peddler about to open the door of the dining room, suddenly Edla Wilmanson, the daughter of Iron Master, said something to her father, and she said, I think he ought to stay with us today. That means she told her father that this man should not go away from here, because it was the Christmas Eve and she don't want to let him go, and told her father that we should allow him to stay with us for the Christmas Eve. And says, I don't want him to go. So she did not want to let the paddler to go away from her house. Further he says, and with that she went and closed the door. What in the world are you doing? Said the father. So here he says that she went straight to the door and closed the door because she don't want let the paddler go. And then her father became very angry and said, what in the world are you doing? That means, what are you doing and why are you allowing him to stay with us even a single hour? And says the daughter stood there quite embarrassed and hardly knew what to answer. So his daughter also understood that this is not fair what her father was doing or behaving and shouting on the paddler, and she was standing right in front of the door, but she did not know what to tell her father in reply because she wanted the paddler to stay with them. And says that morning she had felt so happy when she thought how homelike and Christmassy she was going to make things for poor hungry rich. So finally her father allowed him to stay with them, and that morning she was very happy and she thought how homelike and Christmassy she was going to make things for the poor hungry wretch. That means she was very happy that at least she was able to make the paddler feel home, because every day he walk and sell rat traps, and she was also so happy that she was able to feed something to hungry rich, that means poor beggar. She could not get away from the idea all at once, and that was why she had interceded for the vagabond. So here the author is saying that she could not get away from the idea all at once. That means she made a lot of plan in her mind that how she will celebrate Christmas Eve with the paddler, and even she understood that he was not her father's friend, but still she wanted to celebrate Christmas Eve with him, and says that was why she had interceded for the vagabond. That means she was standing beside the paddler and made some argument with her father on behalf of the paddler in order to allow him to stay with them till the Christmas Eve, and says, I am thinking of this stranger here, said the young girl. So she was always thinking how to help this poor paddler because she saw his bad condition in the forge, and says, he walks the whole year long, and there is probably not a single place in the whole country where he is welcome and can feel at home. So she was feeling very sorry for the paddler and told her father that he walks the whole year long, but nobody cares about him or his hard suffering, and in the whole country where he is welcome and can feel at home. So she was thinking and feeling for the paddler that he should kick off from the house, and at least we should try to make him feel home just like for one day, but nobody ready to welcome him home. So in this way she was trying to convince her father to allow the paddler to stay with them for one day only. Further he says, wherever he turns he is chased away. So here the author is saying that wherever he goes nobody wants to welcome him or nobody is ready to give him shelter, and if he knocks the door and he is chased away, that means nobody wants to welcome him, and if he goes and knocks the door they just chased him away, that means forced to go away. And says always he is afraid of being arrested and cross-examined. So here the daughter of iron master was feeling so sorry for the paddler and said wherever he goes he always feels insecure because nobody likes him or allow him to give shelter for one day only, and he is only frightened of being arrested and cross-examined, that means asking questions such as who are you and from where you are coming and all. So she was feeling very sad for him and says, I should like to have him enjoy a day of peace with us here, just one in the whole year. So the Adla also telling her father that I think we should allow him to stay here just for one day only and enjoy the peace with us, because it is the day that comes with a lot of happiness and peace, and that one day is supposed to be a Christmas day. So just allow him to enjoy at least one day in a year. And further he says the iron master mumbled something in his bed. So the iron master was whispering something because he did not like the idea what his daughter said, and says he could not bring himself to oppose her. So he started thinking in a deep way that at the same time he didn't want to hurt feeling of his daughter because it was Christmas Eve. So he was not able to go against what his daughter said. It was all a mistake, of course, she continued. So Edla also saying to her father that we made a mistake in thinking that he was your one of regimental friend and we forcefully invited him home, and says, but anyway, I don't think we ought to chase away a human being whom we have asked to come here and to whom we have promised Christmas cheer. So here she is saying that just let's forget who he was and from where he came, but we should not tell him to go away from here because we have invited him and asked him to come home, and we have also promised him to stay with us and celebrate Christmas Eve and have food with us and let him celebrate the Christmas. So in this way she is convincing her father to allow the peddler stay home just for one day only, and says, you do preach words than a person, said the iron master. So immediately her father replied that you do preach worse than a person. That means whatever you are teaching me, it is worse than a peddler to whom you want to stay with us, and this could be dangerous for us. Further he says, I only hope you won't have to regret this. So here the iron master told her daughter that be careful, and if there is any mishappening or theft, you will be responsible for that. So in this way her father gave her warning and says, I hope you don't have pay the price for this because you allowed him to home for one day, and says the young girl took the stranger by the hand and led him up to the table. So Edla was agree what her father told her, and then she caught the peddler hand and led him up to the table. That means she took him to the table for eat something because he was so hungry, and says, now sit down and eat, she said, for she could see that her father had given in. So she told the peddler to sit on the chair comfortably and started giving him some food to eat, and she understood that her father had given in. That means her father agreed to her request and allowed the peddler to stay there for one day only, and says the man with the rat trap said not a word. He only sat down and helped himself to the food. So here he is saying that the man with rat trap said no words. That means the peddler was very silent at that time and he didn't speak anything because he knew the iron master was very angry, and then he sat down and started eating the food. Time after time he looked at the young girl who had interceded for him. So here the author is saying that while eating the food, the peddler was looking at the young girl who had interceded for him. That means who pleaded or take action on behalf of the peddler to stay there for one day because they had invited him and enjoyed their company, and then says, why had she done it? What could be the crazy idea? So here the peddler got surprised because the way she was discussing things with her father, and the peddler was thinking why she is supporting him or giving him food and what made her to do that, and says, after that Christmas Eve at Ramjo passed just as it always had. So finally they had enjoyed each other's company on the Christmas Eve, and everything went on very nicely and smoothly like every year, and says the stranger did not cause any trouble because he did nothing but sleep. So during celebrating and after celebration, this peddler didn't do any such kind of stealing and all, and he didn't have to do anything. So he decided to take some rest and then kept sleeping rest of the day. Further he says the whole forenoon he lay on the sofa in one of the guest rooms and slept at one stretch. So here he is saying that the whole forenoon, that means entire morning, actually he had a night sleep in one of the guest room and there was a sofa and he just slept there at one stretch. That means continuously he was sleeping without taking a break, and says at noon they woke him up so that he could have his share of good Christmas fare, but after that he slept again. So in the afternoon they woke him up so that they could give him share of good Christmas fare, that means Christmas food and sweets, and then after that he slept again. That means after having food and drinks, and again he went back to the guest room and slept again, and says it seemed as though for many years he had not been able to sleep as quietly and safely as here at Ramjo. So here the peddler continuously sleeping throughout the day, and it seemed for many years he did not have a peaceful and safe sleeps. So the peddler was feeling more comfortable there and quite safe also. So he slept for a long time because he knew that he will have to go from the iron master's house. In the evening, when the Christmas tree was lighted, they woke him up again. So they have decorated Christmas tree in the evening, and Christmas tree was lighted with different colors and lights, and everywhere people were very happy, and they went to the guest room and woke the peddler up again because they wanted him to celebrate Christmas Eve, and says, and he stood for a while in the drawing room, blinking as though the candlelight hurt him, but after that he disappeared again. So when they woke him up again, he came out of the guest room and then went straight to the drawing room, and his eyes was blinking because of the candle lights, and lights were hurting his eyes, and even he was not able to see properly. Then after that sometime he disappeared again. That means he left from there and went to his guest room, and says 2 hours later he was aroused once more. So when he came back from the drawing room, he started sleeping again, and after 2 hours of sleeping he was aroused once more. That means somebody woke him up again after 2 hours of for dinner. Further he says then he had to go down into the dining room and eat the Christmas fish and porridge. So after 2 hours, when the peddler woke up, he had to go down into the dining room and have the Christmas fish and porridge. So they woke him up once again for eat something, and says as soon as they got up from the table, he went around to each one present and say thank you and good night. So after eating Christmas fish and porridge, he looked around and went around and got some Christmas presents, and then he thanked each one, and then he said good night to everyone because he was just a stranger there inside the house, and says but when he came to the young girl, she gave him to understand that it was her father's intention that the suit which he wore was to be a Christmas present. So here he thanked everybody and started going towards the guest room. Suddenly the iron master daughter came in front of him because she wanted to tell him something about the suit which he was wearing at that time, and that suit was belonging to her father, and said my father's intention is that the suit which he wore was to be a Christmas present. That means her father gave the peddler his suit as a Christmas present, and this is what she told the peddler. He did not have to return it. So Edla, the iron master daughter, told him that you don't need to return that suit and keep it as a Christmas present, and says and if he wanted to spend next Christmas Eve in a place where he could rest in peace and be sure that no evil would befall him, he would be welcomed back. So she also told him that if he wanted to spend next Christmas with them, he can come and celebrate the Christmas and enjoy their company just like that, and he will get a lot of happiness and joy there, and there would be a lot of dishes to have, and says be sure that no devil would befall him. That means there would be no danger for him and he would be welcomed back again. So she also told him that you can come here again and you are always welcome here, and says the man with the rat trap did not answer anything to this. So hearing all this from Edla, the peddler did not have anything to tell her, and he just listened to her very attentively whatever she was telling, and says he only stared at the young girl in boundless amazement. So the peddler stared at the young girl in boundless amazement. That means he became very surprised to see why this girl was behaving to him in such a nice manner. So seeing all this from her, he was very surprised. The next morning, the iron master and his daughter got up in good season to go to the early Christmas service. So here the author is saying that after Christmas Eve, the next day Edla and her father woke up in good season. That means early in the morning they woke up and went to the church for the Christmas service, and says their guest was still asleep and they did not disturb him. So their guest, that means the peddler, the rat trap seller, was still asleep and they did not disturb him because they had to go church for the Christmas service early in the morning, and at that time the peddler was sleeping on his bed, and says when at about 10 o'clock they drove back from the church, the young girl sat and hung her head even more dejectedly than usual. So both the iron master and his daughter Edla drove back from the church. That means they came home back from the church about 10 o'clock, and the young girl sat and hung her head even more dejectedly than usual. That means she was sitting helpless and she was very sad and she was putting her head down. So this shows that something bad happened and she was worried about something. At church, she had learned that one of the old crafters of the ironworks had been robbed by a man who went around selling rat traps. So here the author is saying that at church she had learned. That means she had heard at church that one of the crafters of the ironworks had been robbed by a man. So it was the peddler only who had stolen Crofter's money, and at that time he was inside the Iron Man's house. And when Adla heard that the man who went around and selling rat traps, she felt very dejected. That means she felt ashamed because she had allowed him to stay with them and enjoy the peace and harmony, and says, "Yes, that was a fine fellow you let into the house," said her father. So suddenly her father became very angry and started shouting on his daughter Edla and said that she the fine man to whom you are considering a poor man, and allowed him to stay inside the house, and now you can see he is a thief only. So this made him very disappointed and says, "I only wonder how many silver spoons are left in the cupboard by this time." So the Iron Master was very worried because he knows he has let the thief inside to be the Christmas guest, and he is telling his daughter that you are the one who let him into the house for the Christmas Eve, and now I don't know how many silver spoons would be left. And the Iron Master was sure that the thief would have stolen everything and gone away. So he was really concerned because they had let the thief inside their home. Further it says the wagon had hardly stopped at the front step when the Iron Master asked the valet whether the stranger was still there. So here the author is saying that the wagon had hardly stopped at the front step. That means the Iron Master and his daughter quickly reached home, and their vehicle just stopped in front of the house. And then the Iron Master asked the personal assistant that whether the stranger was still there, because now he got to know that he is a thief and he had stolen Crofter's money as well from his house, and says he noted that he had heard at church that the man was a thief. So the Iron Master also informed his personal assistant valet that this man is a thief who was inside the house. So he wanted to know whether he is still inside the house or not, and says the valet answered that the fellow had gone and that he had not taken anything with him at all. So the valet answered, that means the personal assistant replied to him that the fellow had gone. That means the peddler, the rat trap seller, had already gone, and he did not take anything from the house, and he was empty handed when he left the house. On the contrary, he had left behind a little package which Miss Williamson was to be kind enough to accept as a Christmas present. So here he says the valet told the Iron Master that despite of stealing something, he had left behind a little package. That means he had left something for Miss Williamson as a Christmas present. So the peddler did not take anything from the house instead of stealing. So he left something as a gift for his daughter Edla Williamson, and says the young girl opened the package, which was so badly done up that the contents came into view at once. So when Edla received the Christmas present, she hurried to open the package because she was so surprised to see the gift, and package was so badly done up. That means package was not packed properly, and she could see easily what was inside the package. And then she tried to open it and saw the gift inside it, and when she saw the gift, she gave a little cry of joy. She found a small rat trap, and in it lay 3 wrinkled 10 krona notes. So she became very happy to see the gift because it was unexpected gift. And when she opened it, she saw a small rat trap inside the package, and there were also 10 kronas note. So the peddler also left the 10 kronas notes which he had stolen from the old crafter's house. So this time he realized that he had cheated old crafters who had gave him shelter and food and all. So in this way he felt that he had done wrong with the old crafter, and now he wanted to return that money which he had stolen from the old crafter's house, and wanted to return it to the old crafter. Further he says, but that was not all. In the rat trap lay also a letter written in a large jagged character. So here he says that, but that was not all. That means there was something inside the gift, and it was a letter written in a large jagged characters. So he wrote something in a large jagged. That means he wrote something, but it was not clear at all. And he wrote, "Honored and noble miss, since you have been so nice to me all day long, as if I was a captain, I was to be nice to you in return as if I was a real captain." So he wrote in a large jagged letter that which was not very clear, that honored and noble miss, that means respected and honest miss, since you have been so nice to me all day long. That means since you have been taking care of me throughout the day and gave me delicious food and invited him home just like as if I was a captain. And now this is my turn to give you something back in return as if I was a real captain, and says, for I do not want you to be embarrassed at this Christmas season by a thief. So here he also wrote that he is not captain actually, and in reality he is a thief, and said, I don't want you to be embarrassed. That means I don't want you to feel ashamed or sad to see thieves inside the house, especially in a precious festival that is Christmas. So in thinking this, the peddler left the house and informed her who he was, and decided to change his lifestyle and standard to a captain. At last he says that, but you can give back the money to the old man on the roadside. So he also wrote that, please give this money back to the old crafter from I had stolen the money, and he is living alone that in that house, and his house is on the roadside, and says, who has the money pouch hanging on the window frame as a bait for poor wanderers. So he also wrote about the money pouch hanging on the window frame from where he has stolen the money, and says that pouch with money is baits for poor wanderers. That means people who are roaming here and there like a vagabond. This pouch money attracts them and want to feel like robbing the money from the window frame whenever they see the money. So in this way, he also saw that pouch money and steal the money and then get caught into a rat trap. So this money was baits for him, and in the same way he saw this money pouch hanging on the window frame and then he had stolen it, and says the rat trap is a Christmas present from a rat who would have been caught in this world's rat trap if he had not been raised to captain. So finally he is saying that this rat trap which I am giving you is a Christmas present for you from a rat. So he is considering himself a rat and saying he has been caught in this world which is rat trap for him, and now I am released from the rat trap, and says he has been transformed himself to a captain because he understood the power of standard and how the Iron Master and his daughter treated him like a captain, and he got so much peace and calmness in his life just for one day only. So he decided instead of stealing or selling rat trap all around, he must do something different to lead his life with great respect, and then he has signed as a Captain von Stale. So he is considering himself as a Captain von Stale because of the Iron Master's daughter Edla, and he himself treated him like a Captain von Stale, and the Iron Master regimental friend as well. So he gave her a Christmas present in return. So in this chapter you can see the kindness and understanding shown by Edla Wilmanson has turned this paddler into a really good and decent man, and she was able to bring out the essential goodness of the paddler by treating him like a Captain von Stale. So this is the end of the chapter, The Rat Trap, written by Selma Lagerlof. For more informative videos, do subscribe my channel, hit the bell icon so that you get notified whenever new video will be uploaded. So thank you so much for watching once again. Stay safe, stay healthy.